Welcome to KAJ Politics Live, the show where politics meets clarity. Here we go beyond headlines to provide context, insight, and perspectives on the forces shaping power today. And today we have with us Elias Martin, podcaster. He's a podcaster and researcher. He says he is seeking to educate, entertain, and cure division in the USA. So we'll understand from him about the state of US politics from him. And so many topics are there to talk. So we'll talk about all that, understand it better from his point of view and also from everyone else's point of view. Welcome to the show, Elias.
Thank you for the invite. And I could just this conversation could go in so many ways, especially under the current president, Donald Trump. He's very fast and very, sometimes chaotic for better or worse. And then there's so much we could get about. I mean, I could just start with the 2026 midterms. That's already just a whole huge subject unto itself. I mean, you lead the way. You tell me where I want to go because it's very big. It's a very broad topic. I could start with midterms if you like. What's going on with that? What's my prediction? Who I think which party's going to dominate what? But of course, these are predictions. And as a true humble person, well, not that humble, I'll say as an honest person at least, sometimes they could be wrong because of unforeseen circumstance or just shocking events that just popped out of nowhere that most normal brains can see. But yeah, no, I can't wait to get into it.
Absolutely, Elias. Absolutely. We'll understand the US, the state of US politics from you. What's your understanding of that from the different aspects of things? So first, let's understand. From this particular point of view, you say that God is needed in America and around the world. So why do you say that? Around the world, also we want to understand. But since you are in the US, New Yorker, native New Yorker, I want to understand why do you need God? Aren't Americans or American administrations or system enough to deal with it? Why trouble God in these times?
Well, I could answer that as someone who's become more of a spiritualist. I'm kind of stepped away from the Christian faith. That's the current context. I think God is needed, and I don't believe in shoving Bible down people's throats like radical Christians have done. We don't want to go back to the Inquisition era. I just say I think God is needed because we need a higher purpose. We need where we could center to do that. I mean, people have different deities. I don't want to disrespect that as well. But by seeing that America as a nation, we are stepping definitely more further away from that. But actually, it's been an increase. Now there's a trend that's actually been happening that I think some Americans are going back to God. But I want to make sure we go back to God the right way, not just because it could be used as a political tool. One political party has weaponized God more, and I will say that's the Republican Party. They use God in their politics far more than Democrats. Let's be honest, Democrats is a more diverse tent. They have all kinds of beliefs. Even atheists are pretty prominent in that tent. There's Muslims, Hindus, all the other groups on that tent. Yeah, the Republicans tend to use God on more, but I'm only Republican in certain points of views. Like for example, I'll say like fiscal responsibilities where I definitely lean to the right, even though Republicans are not practicing that right now. And I agree with Rand Paul. I respect him for challenging Trump on that. Thomas Massey, good on them on that principle. So I would say, guys, because people who don't have at least a higher purpose or someone believe in, people get lost and people do things that I believe is not productive. I mean, look what's going on just based on U.S. coverage. I could get both sides of where they're not acting like leaders, they're acting like high school students. Donald Trump is a very good example of that. He calls people names. He's trying to take over Greenland, and then that started the whole conversation. And then Jasmine Crockett for the Democrat side, her with her name calling, even calling the governor of Texas, the current governor Greg Abbott, Hot Wheels because he's on a wheelchair and all that. And some people find that offensive. I thought it was a little
Absolutely.
crass. So that's the thing. People are not acting like leaders. That's why U.S. politics definitely feels broken. That ties into that. Sorry about that. That's why it ties into that really well. I mean, the coverage politicians are acting like high school students on both sides of the aisle. One could debate which one is worse, but both sides of the aisle have shown to be very, very immature. And the American media loves it. They love that. They don't want a civil conversation because they care about ratings at the end of the day, not truth. Doesn't matter if it's left wing or right wing media. They want a good story to talk about to get people riled up.
Absolutely, Elias. So, talking of purpose, who needs more purpose in their lives? Are you talking of if you talk about politicians? Do you mean the president needs more purpose, or do you need the opposition needs more purpose?
Well, I don't think. Well, he has plenty. Sadly to say, he has plenty of purpose. I don't think he needs that. But what I think he needs is more focus. I would say on the right things. I'll say focus. I think it's more the better framing here because he got plenty of purpose. Donald Trump. He says he wants to help America. That's even up for debate. He wants to definitely enrich himself. I think that's more true, especially his net worth went up with cryptocurrency being more readily available. Um, I would, but I was talking, but the purpose part, I was focusing more on the voters because I feel like they're the ones that seem lost. Everything is hopeless. Politicians, they got their purpose. They just want more money, whatever. It's not a good purpose. Maybe they need a better purpose. They need to remember they serve America, not just themselves. And there's so many examples I could get through. I mean, I could give the big ones like Dan Crenshaw of the Republican side, trading stocks, and Nancy Pelosi on the Democrat side. I mean, this is why the U.S. politics actually feels very broken because there's so much blatantly, I'll say, even brazen unethical actions going on, and corruption as well. And me as an independent, I try to be fair minded because both of the parties are at fault. Our fault here as an independent voter. I'm wearing blue doesn't help me that much. But you think I'm a Democrat there symbolically. I mean, some things I do agree with Democrats, like more. I would say we need to work on better with immigration, for example. Instead of this ICE, I'm sure you heard about ICE, how they have beaten up people, ground up people, and even killed not just illegal immigrants, but even U.S. citizens as well. Which it's tragic. It doesn't matter where one leans politically. It's tragic. It's a loss of human life, and there's a lot I can even get into as well with that. I mean, there's so much so I could talk about ridiculous. I mean, you lead the way. I just want to provide as much context to the audience. I know this is a global show, so I don't want to get too American as well because that could turn some of them off. I believe at least, unless the comments could prove me wrong. I'm not afraid to be wrong. If I'm wrong, I will just happily admit, correct, and move on. Being wrong doesn't get you killed. At least most
Absolutely.
of the time.
Absolutely, Elias. So, when you talk about, curing divisions in the USA, what is it that you want to talk about? You also talk about dysfunctionality of the two-party system. Help us understand why do you call it dysfunctional sort of a system? Because that's been there for a long, long time. I want to understand from your perspective. Is the time over for those two-party systems?
Well, the simple answer is yes, absolutely. We definitely need a realignment. We definitely need to change it because there's a stat that's proving my point, especially among younger voters. Sometimes I've been too critical of them, but I got to give them a lot of credit here. The being registered independent has been the fastest growing political party. Not being a Democrat, not being a Republican, especially among I would say the Gen Z and even some of my millennials, which is me. I'm part of that trend. We're registered independents because both parties just serve, just to put it simply, big money interests like Wall Street, big businesses that have massive unfair control of things like airports, for example. They could, they both serve that entity that really doesn't make it function for the people. It's supposed to be for the people, but it seems like big businesses are getting a lot of the influence and the lobbyists. They're just not. Yeah, that's why I call it a dysfunction. And I say dysfunction because it is dysfunctional, but I don't want to use the word corrupt too much or it loses meaning. Because I'll be saying corrupt, when they don't like something going on. It's not about feelings. Corrupt has to be based on what's on the law and what's violating it to be specific. So I try to be careful with certain wording there. Yeah, that's why I say that. So more people becoming independents, and they're gonna definitely need to change and realign on both of those parties if they want to exist. That's the fastest growing affiliation. They don't want to be affiliated with either party. Um, Even say like New York, that's been some decent increase of that. Even though New York, it's very Democrat, very blue, and gerrymandering has affected the state as well, which is going to benefit Democrats for the midterm. We go state by state. If you want my honest prediction, I could go further into it, but I want to. I hope I'm answering your question and curing division. I just think we need to have just a simple, honest conversations. I'm happy that more shows are doing that at least. Imperfect, but it's a step in the right direction. Having the left and the right and the people in the middle in the same table. I can give specific examples of that. I'll say like Abby Phillips of Night News of CNN. I think that's a good thing. It isn't perfect, but I think it's a step in the right direction. So just being very biased in favor of one side of the aisle. I mean, it kind of does that, but at least they have different people in that conversation. I would say in a show like Piers Morgan Uncensored, my guilty pleasure, watching them argue, but at least you have people different sides together. It's aggressive, but I think we need to do more of that. I'm happy that trend is slowly moving in that direction.
Right. What about the main street? See, the Wall Street will always be predominant on politics. In politics, especially if there is a two-party system. What about the general people? Where do they fall into the equation? Means they generally they talk about good things. That even bad things, that this is not happening. There is division. There is so much of dysfunction. There is, we are the democracy is losing. But at the end of the day, a lot of people stick to their parties that they follow. Then how is anything going to change? What's the role of people here? Are they to be the ones who should introspect about the state of the U.S. politics?
Well, for the mainstream media, they don't have an incentive to introspect. They're just gonna report. And you're right. A lot of people, especially establishment, they're gonna just stick to their guns, for better or worse, even if it's near suicidal. Look at well, it used to be called MSNBC. It's MS Now. That they broke away for NBC because NBC cared about profits, and MS Now is sticking to politics, even if they say that's the reason why they lost money and ratings, but they're sticking to that. So you're right, they're sticking to that. But I just think people could control where their attention is. They don't need to change their politics necessarily. They don't need to do that. No, you stick to what you believe. You believe climate change is important. You know what party is good for you. You believe gun rights is important. You know what party is right for you. Some voters, look, I just say you make your decision at the end of the day. Just don't make idiotic or blanketed general statements that are just not true. And I'll respectfully challenge that. And what I mean by bringing people together, it's not about changing minds necessarily. It's about learning how to have a conversation without thinking the other one is just an enemy because they have a different point of view. It's just conversations and conversations that needs to be. I think that's what we could do as people. Or Wall Street Journal, they're gonna do what they do unless they lose a lot of raise or they become bankrupt or defunct. You can apply that to any other mainstream media, fill in that blank. Like I said, MS Now. Also, what's the other one? CNN. Well, even though CNN has kind of changed a little bit on something, especially the personalities that they have to some degree. Like Don Lemon's no longer there. Chris Cuomo's haven't been there for years. So there's changes going on, but they will stick to their guns because they care about ratings and profits at the end of the day, not necessarily on truth. But yeah, that's all. There actually there's no buts. That's all I'm gonna just say about that. If you want me to elaborate further, I'll be happy to do that. Like I said, there's a lot. Just beginning this year is so much to talk about. I mean, I know it's like a broken record. There's so much to get into. Oh man.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Elias. I want to understand the people who have the voting power. How should they understand their responsibility in a state of affairs of US politics in today's time.
Oh, this is what I try to do in my podcast. I mean, I might do a shameless plug, politically high tech. It's a little bit of hiatus right now. We'll do a final episode on that soon. But just to answer that, what I try to do is educate the voters, see where they're at. I can't do local because local is too much. I could do just barely state and federal, especially with big issues. I said, look, listen, if you care about what was some of the amendments that they passed recently? I mean, there's so much to get into, like water. You want water, you want more access to cleaner water, for example. There's a proposal right there. Check your mailbox. I mean, pay attention to things you care about. At least just try to care for one issue. Do one thing at a time. No, I understand people are busy, and people are going to care. And some voters are single issue voters. That's something I had to learn how to grasp. I just thought a lot of people just care about a bunch of things. That's a mistake about it. People just care about just that one issue. Okay, water. What party you think is going to do well with that? Maybe you might want to vote Democrat because they about the clean environment, and that's what they push. Lot more than the Republicans. Republicans more like, I don't know, privatize water. Um, Probably not the most popular opinion, but that's, we let the voters decide. And I mean, voters do have a lot of power. It's just voters, and this is how I educate so much voters. I say you cannot just vote during the president. You have to try to get involved locally, and I've give some general. I mean, I'm updating those links right now. Join locally, get involved with local elections, get involved with the midterms this year, because the president can't do everything. And that's a big problem with the American electorate nationwide. They just only vote for president, and some fall asleep for a couple of years to come. They wonder why things haven't changed. And join a local board too, because local board can influence local policies, and local policies affects Americans more than federal policies. So all the more important. But if you want some change to happen, especially some immediate change, join a local board. Get more involved. I know everybody's busy. Just commit to how much time you can without disrupting your life. Basically, got no disruptions. It's one of the reasons why people are resistant to change. And this goes beyond politics, even psychology and human condition. So that's my thing. We have more power, do we think, even though there's a redistricting going on, some could say it's undermining it, and there is a case for that. States like Texas, California, well, New York is going through it. Utah went through their redistricting, and this is both parties trying to get more power with minimizing effort to get more votes. And this is another reason why U.S. politics feels very broken. I could get somewhat deeper to it, but this is definitely going to impact this midterm for sure. I mean, it's already having an impact. I personally think Dems are going to win the House, and then just be very brief, I think Republicans are going to keep the Senate, but I think they might lose 2 seats the most, but still maintain a majority. And I think the Democrats are going to have a pretty slim majority in the House, probably with a 5 seat, maybe 6 seat. Because the Republicans are not doing so well, especially with the story of ICE, that they look very inhuman when they communicated. That's all you say. Like, for example, what they wanted to react, JD Vance, are you going to apologize to the death of Alex Preddy? He just said, "What for?" Not a good message. It doesn't matter if it was taken out of context or not. And then they're just labeling some of the citizens as domestic terrorists without much proof. That's a problem, and that's a communication issue that could definitely impact the midterms. Voters are very short-term minded. They can remember only certain things going probably far back. But this is what's gonna. I believe this is what's gonna happen. And like I said, This is just prediction, just for fun, and I'm not gonna say I'm gonna be 100% correct. But this is what I believe is gonna happen in the makeup. So far, Republicans barely have the House, 218. That's the smallest number you need for the majority, but that's gonna easily flip. And in the Senate, they have 53 seats. I think they're going to go down to 51, keeping a very, very, very narrow, very slim majority where they cannot have a lot of dissent. This will pass their agenda. Yep, that's all. That's all I can say in a very, very short Sure, though. Yeah, that's the best way I could just summarize what's going on. I mean, state by state, they have Republicans are getting more seats in that state, Democrats can get more seats in another state. I mean, if you study your political index, the Texas one's going to favor Republicans, and the California one's going to favor Democrats. New York's going to favor Democrats, and strangely, Utah, red state, that redistricting, which is a weird case, is going to favor Democrats a bit more. So it's case by case about what's going on. And some red states just say, no, we're not going to do the gerrymandering thing. It's unlawful. There's no need to do so, which Trump is not very happy about because he wants the Republicans to maintain power. So there's so much stuff going on with the midterms, and I gotta say, I think the Democrats are gonna try to do their best there because I think they're throwing some decent candidates. I think they might cause a few upsets if they stick to the message. Focus on economics. Economics is a big one. ICE is a big issue with how they're handling immigrants. It's another big issue that's going on right now. And look, Trump's record's not exactly the best with that. So Democrats have some ammunition there. But at the same time, Democrats are not looking great either. I mean, polling wise, they are the worst ever in popularity. I mean, lowest ever. So they need to find a way just to come out of there. The Democrats are not in the at the best position either. But the way the voting is going, if they go with this trajectory, because they won a lot of elections last year, they could definitely win some in 2026. Both parties are not in the great position. So to some extent, it's anyone's game, maybe except for the Senate. The Senate's going to stay Republican, and the Supreme Court is going to stay Republican for a really long time. Yeah, that's why I can say without getting too deep into it. I hope that answers your question.
Of course, Elias. So to understand it from a voter point of view, and especially those who have recently become eligible, young generation, how do you want them to choose a party in today's time? On what basis? Means, is it because their parents chose something, or is it that they have to look at it, from their own point of view, understand? Because in your case, if I understand, there has been some change in terms of party orientation. Where do you stand? Let's start from there and help the young voters, eligible voters, think of what is good for them. How do they do that?
It goes back to go with what you care about because that's what's going to get you going. If you don't care about gun rights, that's fine. But if you care about environment, you look at what candidates has a good track record, not just what they say, because they can say all the pretty things. Some people can have Obama level, oration, which is amazing. That's the last person to have great orator skills. Um, Politically, I disagree with him on some things. I lean as an independent, fiscally conservative, socially liberal. I mean, that's the best way I could call. That's why I could, describe myself because I am liberal when it comes to like social issues, healthcare. Definitely lean with the left, and but for young voters, for those of you who are undecided or cynical, look at the candidate that cares about your main issue. Look at them. If you think I should be abolished, you should support more the progressive wing of the Democrat Party. The moderates, they're not going to agree as much. They're probably going to say reform. They're going to probably might want to keep ICE, for example. It's probably not the best example, but go by the voter, go by the camp, go by the candidate who cares about your main issue. I will say start with that. And if you see that they're not very credible, you find someone else, or worst case scenario, just sit out. Because I know if you're trying to tell the one for the left to go right, or vice versa, that's like I am calling them to commit sin. that's how bad they react. And I said, no, don't do that. But there are many candidates, especially in certain races, that are very crowded. So you're bound to find one. If you want someone who wants to lower taxes, you know what party to go to there. I definitely like some lower taxes. That part I will agree with Republicans on that stuff. because it's pretty hefty. But definitely, I can't complain as much compared to the European taxes. Woo, they are. I think a lot of Republicans would get a heart attack with the tax rate that the Europeans have to pay. So what? This is uncalled for. It's unconstitutional. Look, that's Europe. They have their own system. We just got to focus on ours. And I study their tax rate. It's insane. The Republicans will get a heart attack. That's what I'm going to say. That's how high it is. If you want to, and don't just go by party, because a lot of people just go by party. Look about who's looking out for what, and just look. And if you want to take it a step further, look at the candidate who has the most common interest compared to you, just to bring it up a bit. Doesn't matter, Democrat, Republican. It's just about issues you care about. You want more housing? Well, both parties have an interesting solution for that. That's why I could say for the young upcoming voters. And if you want things to be easier, I could refer you to some sources like 1440, Ground News, where they give you a collection about the main story, how it's being reported by the left, the right, and the center. It's such a great tool, especially for busy people like myself. It's very, very helpful. It keeps me informed despite so much noise. I know social media and mainstream media, a lot of medias, they give you nothing but noise and misinformation. So I'll say try those sources out. I'll say The Hill's another good one that's fair and balanced. But I love Ground News. Ground News, even though they don't know me, it's not my product. But I say it's a very good product for those who don't have a lot of time to cut through the noise. It does that for you. If you wonder how the left is reporting it, it will give you tons of sources. It could be something like the New York Times, for example, and then they'll list so much. And then for the right, they'll put like Wall Street Journal, like you mentioned, they'll put that how they reported it for the right. And they do have different headlines and different framing. And that's the reason for a division, because we have the same issue, but we look at it very partisan. We have a different framing of it. And let me just use, sadly, the one that got killed, Alex Preddy. The right will just say, well, he's a domestic terrorist. The left will say, oh, the ISIS committing brutality. Same event, but different framing. So this is a reason. That's one of the main reasons of the division as well. I think we need to have a conversation and restore some common ground. So it's I think Ground News is one of the best sources out there for that. Busy people, especially those who don't have time to decipher. Oh, this is coming from left wing, right wing, or even from the center. Ground News is so good. It's such a great tool. I even use it myself because I don't have time to research things, and I don't. Ground News keeps me grounded, for lack of a better word. And so I won't fall for the left wing hysteria and the right wing hysteria, because I fell for either one personally. Depending on what issue you're talking about. Like for the left, I fell for more the racial hysteria, and then the right, I fell for the more trans hysteria. So it's like, no, I gotta get myself together. As to why am I doing this? Because you get caught up with a bunch of noise. So that's one way to combat that. Ground News is such a great tool for that. Because it's a lot of noise, it's a lot of misinformation out there for sure.
Right. Is there a middle ground somewhere? Means you have switched multiple times, parties. So is there a middle ground? What is your present position? Left, right, middle, anywhere?
I'm in the middle, but I'm favoring a little more of the left right now. I'm going to be brutally honest. I mean, if you were, you already had we had a conversation, like a couple years ago. I would have said I favor a little more on the right because I care about balance, in particular. And when we have balance, you please the most people possible. So I'd say I'm in the middle, but I'm definitely centering to. I'm definitely touching more of the left right now because MAGA is not doing such a great job. They're not even being America first. They're failing their core basic promises, and it shows. I mean, a lot of people has left. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene is the basic example that she left the MAGA and she was one of the strongest supporters. She's saying it's all a lie, just to say it very succinctly. And more people are feeling that way. And I think Republicans, I think some of them are going to sit out this election because they're disappointed by how MAGA's performing, especially when it comes to economics. They're not doing the best right now. At least some people are feeling that. So, um, Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stay in the middle, but sometimes I kind of flirt to either left or the right, depending on the situation, because I just care about balance, and people just care about. I would just say care about what you care about. I care about balance, so people care about certain issues, and that's perfectly okay. We just got to learn how to have a conversation and reach the best consensus possible. I think that's where the issue is. Instead of just having the extremes of voicing their crazy point of view and projecting it down to the others. That's what needs to be done. It's not about what opinion you have, it's about how we go about it. It's more about the process. That's my main criticism at the end of the day. You could be left wing, right wing, you're not evil, you just have different set of beliefs. And that's what I'm trying to unify.
Absolutely.
And it's okay to be different.
Absolutely, Elias. What is the biggest issue right now in the US, as per you, which needs immediate solution?
Ah, that is such a good question. I mean, one of the more immediate solutions I have, just based on trying to conversate, restore some culture, and I'm gonna plug this. This is more for those who are, of course, in America, but anyone could join. I would say Braver Angels is a big organization that's really trying to get different people together, and that's something that they're making some dents. And one wants to make it more of an active. Maury Gales is the current leader right now of Braver Angels, and I'm part of the Braver Angels, and they are restoring conversations for those who have different point of views, and sometimes even intra, because sometimes within the Democrat tent, for example, the moderates are going to disagree with progressives when it comes to policing or even policing and or how to deal with elections or Donald Trump. There's even debates within the tents. And then for the right, the neocons gonna say, "Oh no, we need to be more involved globally," while while the more conservatives are saying, "No, we gotta help our own." So even within big tents, and I mean, they have this break it down real well depending on the event that they have. They're bringing different people together. It's not to change minds, but to reach a broad consensus saying, okay, this part is good, and we take the best parts of each camp and trying to reach a consensus, which I think that's not I think actually it's more important than ever. And if I could just chime in one real quick thing, another thing that's going to cause division, it's very political, and this is sports, is the Super Bowl. Super Bowl is a global event. It's a very huge event, and some people are not happy with Bad Bunny because he's going to sing only in Spanish. That's a whole nother issue. And then there's some that are happy because this is showing that we have evolved culturally, and we're allowing a Spanish singer there. And me personally, my personal opinion is let him have his chance. Let him have his chance and see how it goes. That's what I would say to that. And that's even the division. That's more of a cultural entertainment division on that. And then to the point that the Republicans have their own halftime show at Turning Point USA, a very big right wing organization. It's okay. They don't want to listen to us. They want to ignore us. Fine. We're gonna have our own event. So yeah, I mean there is a lot of division, but I think there's work that can be done. I think there's some progress being made, even though the mainstream media wants to kind of ignore that to some degree. They're not ignoring it completely like they used to. So I got to give them props that they're getting a little bit progressively better on bringing different people for different camps, political orientations together.
Absolutely, Elias. Are you optimistic or pessimistic in terms of the future of US politics? How would you like to put that? If yes, optimistic, where do you see the optimism in? In the present two parties or another party or anything else?
I mean, personally, I will want a different party. I'm going to be honest with you. I will want a completely different party. That'll suit more of me, so I could be the political party instead of being independent. That's what I would want. That portion, I'm very pessimistic, but I'm weirdly optimistic. And there's one change I had to do. Stop going to social media and the news as if it's a know all be all. If you go outside, see what's going on, join some events, it's not as bleak as it seems. It's not as bleak because the media always gives you this. I mean, generally speaking, I mean, sometimes they do positive every once in a while, even social media too. but most of the time it's negative coverage that gets you sad, depressed, or anxious. Go outside more, be more involved in events, and that's something I've been doing. This is why I love Braver Angels. They gave me more sense of optimism. Before, if you would have talked to me a few years ago, I would say, "Oh, pessimist. I think this country is going to burn to the ground in the next 50 years." But I think America is going to do better. But we need to go through this course, this cycle of chaos. And that's how all change has been brought about. Restudying history again. I always go back to history just to see where my headspace is at. So yeah, we need to go through chaos. I mean, all major changes have not, have went through some sort of chaos in the societal level. So I am definitely more optimistic, despite
Absolutely.
despite the crazy media, their sensationalized reporting. So
Absolutely. My last question to you, Elias, is to understand how do you think, with the way the world is viewing Trump's action, how do you think the future will remember, history will look at the Trump tenure?
Oh, that's such a good question, and I'm happy you actually asked me a geopolitical question. 'Cause I've been studying that recently. I mean, Greenland. I mean, this is the best way I could put it. Trump. There's a method to his madness. There really is. I mean, it's chaotic. It's brash, rude, even at times. Yeah, even at times, I would say borderline psychotic. but it's bringing it's making the EU leaders, for example, realize, oh, they can't just solely rely on the United States. I mean, it's going to damage global relations. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Even when even when things come to settle, because Trump said, "Oh, no, I'm going to take over Greenland by force," and even though I kind of have some understanding what Trump's going to do, as if and some people got to read the art of the deal. That gives you to some of his insight of his mind. Said, no, no good press. There's no such thing as bad press. Oh, he definitely believes that. That's why he speaks craziness. Unlike most politicians, they believe in bad press, and they believe bad press will eventually end their careers. So Trump is very odd on that. And but they're gonna remember him as a more chaotic, orthodoxy. I mean, I don't mind some of his unorthodox um ways, because we definitely need some change there. But tariff the whole world, I don't agree with that. That definitely damaged some relations, especially with Canada. Canada's definitely be more open to the EU and China. Not a great move. Long term, I don't know how history books are gonna write them, but I'm pretty sure some are gonna be pretty negative. I would say, because the economy's not doing well. We continue to get further into the national debt. I'm just to keep it simple. I'm going to say it's going to probably lean more negatively, and then globally, we're definitely have damaged relations with I'll say established allies like the European countries, for example. They I hope Mark Rutte continues to do a good job bringing Trump and keep preserving NATO. I say he's doing an okay job, but I say he's a bit of a sycophant, a butt kisser to Trump. But if he needs to do that to keep NATO together, so be it. I'm kind of a pragmatist. I would prefer it a different way, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're gonna get what you want, but not the way that you expect or want to get it. So that's what I'm gonna say about that. The world is. I mean, certain world leaders respect him. I mean, like, um, but but I just say that I think Trump's going to go down more negatively, unless he has some about 2 years to change it up. But as of now, the way it's going, it's going to be it's going to be negative. It's going to be negative for sure.
Absolutely. Let the future unfold. We'll see how it all pans out. Especially a lot of people in the world's biggest democracy, largest democracy, is watching very closely what's happening in the world's biggest democracy. Be that as it may, a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about your views, the way you are doing things, your podcast. What is the best way people can do so?
Well, I will provide a email because I've been responding to that more. It'll be illusion. I'm going to spell that for you, 17 at gmail.com. It starts with an E, U, L L U SION number 17 at gmail.com if you want to contact me. I'm going to be having the website out for the podcast. It's our own website. I've been working on that. That's why I haven't been as active posting episodes, but I will get back to that. I promise you. And hold me to the fire. I don't mind feedback in the account. I could take it. I'm a grown person. I've got a lot of feedback. What do you think? I got better lighting and better sound system. Feedback. I need feedback. I don't want to hear, yes, it's great. That's nice, but that doesn't help. I keep seeking feedback. I'm begging for feedback, even if it has to hurt my feelings. It's okay. My feelings can recover. I want this podcast to be better. Okay. And then there my YouTube accounts where I post of it. I also have a Rumble as well as a backup just in case the YouTube censorship goes crazy, which it has at times. I even got affected by it at one point. And then I'll be taking down my X account. Yeah, I'm finally calling it X a Twitter account because I don't really use that as much. So you could ignore that one. And I'm on Buzzsprout as well for the audio version of the podcast. Yeah, for those of you who are curious, I want people, I don't mind people challenging me. I think challenging is a good thing because if you just stick to a bunch of yes people, you don't grow. You have a sheltered point of view, and that's going to make you ill prepared, especially for this current American political climate that is chaotic. And people should pay attention to what America is doing. I'm sure India is doing that. They're paying close attention to that, and of course Europeans they're super anxious. And Russia, when they have a chance to instigate, they'll try to egg Trump to do something. Nope, 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 no, don't do that, Trump. Don't listen to Putin. You know what he's doing there. Don't, please don't. Please don't. And definitely, yeah, definitely don't have compliments from the authoritarian nations because that just means we're definitely stepping the wrong direction, and we'll be, the democracy is very fragile, so we need to be vigilant and we need to do that. And I respect the protest that's going on out there. So long as you're not hurting anybody or causing violence, is perfectly okay with me. Annoying, yes, but it's legal, it's lawful as long as you're not destroying buildings and hurting people. Okay, that's what I'm going to say to the protesters out there. Okay, you're right. I'm happy that you're using it. I don't respect the paid people as much, but those who are organically doing it, they care about the issues. Good for you. Good for you.
Absolutely. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Politics Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.